Anyway, that's just some of what the movement does. Now, why? That's always one of the big questions. Why do people do this? And when we started this project, that was my question. I came back after that and I said, where's the money coming from? This takes a lot of money. Who's behind this? And the critics were saying, it's Saudi Arabia, it's Iran, it's the CIA. So when we started this project, the idea was to interview people in Turkey to see if we could find out where the money's coming from. Well, let me just tell you, I'll go to the bottom line and then I'll back up. There's almost no government money going into this movement. A little bit sometimes in areas like in Azerbaijan, the government gave them some land and a building that was so dilapidated they had to tear it down and build another one. So maybe some things like that, but very, very little government money. It's coming from the people. Alp, you remember that first night? I'll never forget that first night in Istanbul when we met with these, some of the people who knew Mr. Gülen. One of them, no, 3 of them had put up the money for that hospital in Istanbul. And what we came to realize, we started with that group, and then we interviewed blue-collar workers. We interviewed professional people, engineers. We interviewed doctors at the hospital. We interviewed teachers. And we interviewed blue-collar workers. And we did I did. Alp didn't go with me on this one. It was all women. I interviewed a group of women who were part of the movement. And it was just wonderful. And what we learned, basically, is that everybody gives. Somewhere between 5 and 20% of their income. Now, for some of these, businessmen who make millions, that's a lot of money. And even poor blue-collar workers who could barely put food on the table were giving about 10% of their income. This goes for scholarships in the schools. About 20% of the students in these schools can't afford tuition. And they're private schools, so the students pay tuition. But these scholarships from the people in the movement allow people who can't afford the tuition to go. And the scholarships provide dormitory space, and they provide scholarships for people in these prep schools and whatever. So the giving on the part of everybody in the movement, in part, that's what makes people so committed. As you know, once you give, it's circular. You kind of feel committed. So it both builds commitment as well as shows commitment. So that's the money aspect. And why? Why do people do this? Well, I think the basic answer goes back to Turkish culture and to Islam. It's a religious movement. People are motivated by Islamic teachings and by Turkish culture, which has always emphasized, as you know, hospitality. You have to come visit my home and see the beautiful cabinet I have with all these gifts. Sweetheart, we're going to have to buy another cabinet. I'm already out of space. Every time you go to Turkey, you better take an extra suitcase because you're going to come back with ceramics. And these aren't just cheapy little things. I mean, these are beautiful ceramics. Anyway, so everybody gives. It's the spirit of Turkey, and it's the spirit of Islam. And they tell the story about, Muhammad in the desert, never eating alone. When he would sit down at night, he would invite the stranger into his tent. And so that has come down, and I think that's part of it. So the movement is really a voluntary movement supported by the members.